Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Magnum Gold Corp, MGI, and the TSX Venture Exchange. A 2015 drill program on the LH property intersected several high-grade gold intersections, including 11 meters of 20.66 grams per ton gold. Additional drill targets on the LH property have been identified by a 2018 drone airborne magnetic survey to further evaluate a pyrrhotite-enriched gold-bearing system. Please visit our website at magnumgoldcorp.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is award-winning investigative reporter Bob Mackin, publisher of thebreaker.news. Welcome back to the show, Bob.
Thank you.
Bob, now that Jason Kenney is the premier designate in Alberta, will this war of words between BC and Alberta escalate, and could it become really serious?
Well, there's enough court actions right now, and I think Jason Kenney is limited in what he can actually do. Of course, he's unlimited to what he can do on the campaign trail and the kind of rhetoric he can throw out there on the campaign trail. But once the rubber hits the road and he gets to the controls of the machine, and he gets advice from the various government lawyers who are going to explain to him that he can't do everything that he said he could do, then it'll be a bit of a different thing, and he'll have to lower the expectations of those who were supporting him and voting for him. The idea that he can just wave a magic wand and turn off the taps of the oil supply to British Columbia, I think is a little bit far-fetched. I think Jason Kenney is fooling himself if he thinks that he can act with the same amount of power that a dictator like Xi Jinping would be able to command the economy. I think that would actually hurt the economy if Alberta was to try that. The existing Trans Mountain Pipeline is a major revenue generator. It's an important national delivery device for petroleum products. And it would hurt Alberta just as much as it would hurt BC, perhaps even hurt Alberta more if he tried to do that. I just don't see that happening, especially since you have some very important companies in Alberta that need to use that resource when they come to British Columbia. One of them I'm thinking about is WestJet. Why would Jason Kenney turn off the taps to BC and leave WestJet planes at Vancouver International Airport dry and stuck on the tarmac? It just doesn't make sense at all. So he can get into office and proclaim the law all he wants, but to actually put it into force is another thing. It was a bit of a different situation when Rachel Notley was not allowing any imports of British Columbia wine into Alberta. That's a different story, a non-essential item perhaps, but for the oil situation, I think he talked a good game to try to get that support, to try to have as a wedge issue over Rachel Notley and the NDP, which actually was the party that put that law together, didn't enact it, didn't put it into action. This really was an election between two different visions for Alberta. Rachel Notley was already one who was essentially playing Jason Kenney's game that she had for the last couple of years been out there banging the drum for the resource sector in Alberta and going up against John Horgan and the BC NDP and really pushing forward the Alberta position when it comes to the pipeline, and her lobbying also ended up with Justin Trudeau buying, with our money, of course, the Trans Mountain Pipeline, more than $4 billion there. We don't know how much it'll cost to actually finish, or if anyone ever actually want to buy that infrastructure. Of course, there will be customers for the oil products. But here we are in 2019. We'll see how, if there is, for instance, a summit between Jason Kenney and John Horgan. Of course, the BC NDP government did put over to the BC Court of Appeal the question of whether the province can do anything to stop the pipeline or the tankers. It's a very limited reference case, and it's watered down quite a lot since the 2017 election, when John Horgan was promising to use every tool in the toolbox to make sure the pipeline doesn't happen. Well, he got into power and found out pretty quickly from the lawyers and staff and government that it wasn't so easy, and that rhetoric from that election, there are a lot of economic and legal implications that will affect that, and the same thing will go now in 2019 with Jason Kenney. Of course, ultimately the market will decide what to do with that, and if China is so angry about Canada arresting and detaining Meng Wanzhou, the Huawei chief financial officer at Vancouver International Airport last December, if they're still angry about that, well, maybe they won't be buying as much oil from us. Well, that would also impact the market and the whole business case for the pipeline itself.
Well, apparently India is pretty hungry for Canadian oil as well.
Well, India is also very close to the Persian Gulf, the Saudi countries. India is also close enough to Russia. That would be a long way to send our oil products, and certainly if they want to buy some, well, let them go ahead. But if Canada thinks it can become reliant on India as a customer, I don't think that's necessarily a great long-term play.
We'll have more with Bob Mackin right after this.
I'm Kelly Jennings, CEO of PowerBand Solutions. PowerBand is a cloud-based provider of auction, inventory, and finance solutions that make buying, selling, and financing vehicles more efficient. PowerBand Solutions trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol PBX and on the OTCQB symbol PWWPF and on Frankfurt symbol 1ZV. For more information, please visit us at powerbandsolutions.com.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Bob Mackin. Bob, is the Squamish Nation looking at a giant condo development around the Burrard Bridge in downtown Vancouver?
Well, the new story that emerged last week was that they were going to be building with West, it wasn't really fully announced yet, but Westbank is the developer that I found has become a 50-50 partner with the Squamish Nation on this proposal. Last week the story was that the Squamish Nation wanted to build 3,000 units on this land, this former village area that was largely taken away from them more than a century ago. They gained it back through a court action. It's called Sanak, formerly known to the Indian Act Ministry in Ottawa as the Kitsilano Indian Reserve 6. They've got slivers of land on either side of the Burrard Bridge that they hope to build towers on for 3,000 units. And they were talking about all rental. Well, it's not all rental. I received some documents from someone who attended a band-only meeting back in March that showed what their plan was. And their plan actually is to sell also condo units on a strata basis. They're looking at this as a major real estate opportunity to sell strata condominiums to make this whole project work. And they'd be a 50-50 partner with Westbank, which is a company that has become well known locally for building some deluxe luxury high-rise towers, very architecturally beautiful to some. You know, the Vancouver House, the Fairmont Pacific Rim, Telus Garden, Shangri-La are just a few. They were involved a number of years ago before the market really went crazy with the Woodwards development in the net down here on the east side, which does have a substantial rental quotient. But the market has changed, Vancouver has changed, and this opportunity to build on Squamish Nation land could really launch Westbank into a whole new stratosphere. They do have their division, Creative Housing, which is aimed at doing social housing projects or affordable housing projects. This one will be looking for some BC housing subsidies and probably looking for some federal subsidies as well. It's got to be $1 billion. I mean, 3,000 units, to put that into perspective, that's 2.5, 2.75 more than the Olympic Village, which has about 1,100 units. West Bank is involved in the project at Oak Ridge, which is about 2,600 units. And the main difference is this project is that the land is limited in size, and it's also limited in access and egress. There's really one dirt road in and out to the site, which is used quite often for film and TV shoots underneath the Burrard Bridge. It's also in a bit of an ecologically sensitive area. Right next door is Vanier Park, and there's also a deciduous forest. There's a BMX track there, and actually that's actually closed right now. It's fenced off because there are some nesting eagles nearby. This is an area which is used quite often by people in the Kitts Point area, a lot of trails. But it's an area that the Squamish Nation did talk about a decade ago, pretty close to a decade ago, about developing back then. And nothing ever came of it, but they did release some architects' renderings of what they wanted to do. They did ask the band membership if they would agree to designate the land for development, and they were going forward, but nothing ever really came of it. Didn't seem to find any investors to make it happen. And they also became very much involved in other projects that came along, such as acquiring the land on the former federal and provincial lands, Jericho, the old RCMP headquarters near Queen Elizabeth Park, the LDB lands in East Vancouver, the Willingdon lands as well, and also a little bit of land from the DFO in West Vancouver. So that occupied their time in the last 4 or 5 years, but now they've dusted off this plan, and they haven't shown us what it would look like, but based on the architect's rendering, which you can find on the Breaker.News from 2010, there's a bit of a wall of mid-rise buildings that would be connected to some land that's right next door to what exists for now for the Molson Brewery, which Concord Pacific owns, and they hope to turn those into condos someday. And there's also, in the 2010 rendering, a large tower, which would be on the west side of the bridge, close to an existing high-rise that is the only high-rise in that area. And there would be a couple of other buildings along the east side of the bridge, just following along the east side of the bridge. It's this odd-shaped piece of land that isn't necessarily really much of any use right now for the Squamish Nation. They've had it for well over a decade and a half, but there's nothing built up on there, and really it's only used for movie and TV shoots. And it was used before and during the Olympics as a vehicle logistics storage point for vehicles in the Vancouver Olympics fleet. But nothing is built there. There is a totem pole that's is the only major marker that says this is First Nations land. But otherwise, that's it. The City of Vancouver is taking an interesting tack that they're saying, well, there's nothing they can do about it. Well, there are things they can do about it. In order for this to happen, there has to be services. There has to be transportation, access, and egress. There has to be fire hydrants. There has to be plumbing. There have to be services after it would be built, from trash removal and recycling to policing to fire department services. The city does have a major bargaining chip in this that the city can negotiate with the Squamish Nation to try to be as true to City of Vancouver requirements and regulations as possible. And of course, the City of Vancouver under Mayor Kennedy Stewart is taking the tack that, this is just another manifestation of reconciliation, and it's a good thing to do for helping First Nations economic development. But the City of Vancouver needs to represent the interests of people that especially live in that area of False Creek and Kitts Point, and make sure that everyone does live in harmony, and that people aren't disrupted during the construction phase, and that this is built properly, and that the housing is actually affordable if it is going to be rental, because this document that I got does talk about them looking at this Commerce Nation and West Bank, looking at this as a major business opportunity. They aren't doing this because they want to solve a problem necessarily. They're doing this because they both want a profit. They both want a profit. They're talking about a mix of primary rental housing with offices, retail, public space, and community amenities. That's a real estate sales opportunity, potential to develop a portion of the project as strata condominiums for sale. And they want to go for the long-term rental income side of things, they say, because, quote, it would take advantage of rising rents and real estate values over time. This would be the biggest residential development so close to downtown Vancouver, just across the Burrard Bridge, and it's in the Kitsilano area, which itself is going through some transformations in years to come. This is a major business opportunity. They're not doing this just out of the goodness of their heart.
We'll have more with Bob Mackin right after this.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO, on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp. is a Canadian-based mineral exploration project generator. The company currently holds multiple property interests in Ontario with joint venture partners and is seeking further joint venture partners for other drill-ready properties in our portfolio. For more information, please visit our website at rmroyalty.com or call me at 604-922-2030.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Bob Mackin. Bob, is SNC-Lavalin doing the very best it can to lobby the BC government to give them major projects for bridges and other infrastructure?
Well, yes, indeed. SNC-Lavalin is. They sent two vice presidents actually to Victoria at the end of last November to meet with several deputy ministers across several ministries. And the theme of that meeting was about liquefied natural gas. They hired Richard Prokopenko as their lobbyist, Whistler-based lobbyist, who set up those meetings. And those meetings were also to apprise those deputy ministers about the history of the company, and also to talk about recent projects. And SNC-Lavalin, of course, is no stranger to British Columbia, where it built the Canada Line and operates the Canada Line. It built the Evergreen Line extension in the Tri-Cities. It was the owner's engineer on the Sea to Sky Highway. It's done numerous projects with BC Hydro, most recently the John Hart Generating Station. And it is shortlisted also for the Patella Bridge replacement. It was previously shortlisted for the Massey Tunnel replacement, but of course when the government changed, so did the government's plans, and that project is not happening. So here you had SNC-Lavalin going in to talk about its capabilities of working on LNG projects back in the fall, shortly after the LNG Canada final investment decision was announced, and the investors for the LNG Canada gave thumbs up to go ahead with that major project. And SNC-Lavalin said that they wanted to come and talk to British Columbia government officials to say, hey, we'd like to work on that project. But the interesting part of that is that project really is out of the hands of the provincial government. What the provincial government does control are other major projects, such as the Patella Bridge, such as the SkyTrain extensions. At the end of November last year, of course, that was shortly after Doug McCallum was elected mayor in Surrey, and on a platform that included scrapping the planned LRT and replacing that with an extended SkyTrain from Surrey to Langley. And of course, SNC-Lavalin is the SkyTrain company. They've done work on every single phase of rapid transit in Metro Vancouver, and because of their work on SkyTrain, their knowledge of it, their patents, they want to maximize that opportunity too. And of course, there's the Broadway subway, which they had a hand in recommending that it be a SkyTrain technology versus some other technology many years ago, and they have their eyes set on that project as well. So there were meetings that were set up in February of this year between the Vice President of Government Relations for SNC-Lavalin, Sam Bachovis, and a couple of their executives from their Vancouver office. These executives are key people in infrastructure and transportation projects. And Sam Bachovas was going to introduce them to Claire Trevina, the Minister of Transportation. Their meetings are already set up for February 14th. The meetings were set up for February 19th. That was budget day with Claire Trevina, the Transport Minister. They were, however, canceled on February 14th. There was a death in the family for Sam Bachovas, the SNC-Lavalin lobbyist. The meetings, as far as I've been told, by the company and by the government have not been rescheduled yet, but they will probably meet sometime. One reason why this is of concern to British Columbians is that SNC-Lavalin applied last year to build the Patella Bridge replacement, $1.4 billion project, and that decision was actually made February 14th. The same day that the meeting was canceled was the day that Claire Trevina announced that SNC-Lavalin was one of 3 groups on the shortlist. So at a time when SNC-Lavalin was talking to various deputy ministers last fall, including the Deputy Minister of Transportation, Grant Main, they were in the process of applying for this project, and now here they are. They're shortlisted for the project, and this is a bit problematic because there's a clause in the bidding rule that says that bidders are not supposed to lobby politicians or the deputy ministers while there is a request for proposals that is being put together, being vetted. But of course, you do have the situation where the group that's ultimately the referee in this is also the government. So the government doesn't seem to be enforcing its own rules, or at least telling the company to keep its distance at this time. To be a fly in the wall in the meetings, to actually hear what was said in the meetings. I've asked for all sorts of things, handwritten notes, recordings if any exist, PowerPoint presentations. We'll see if I get anything like that. Haven't got anything like that so far. But I think it's rather distressing that at this time when SNC-Lavalin is such a big cloud over the company's head, the company's tried to alleviate that cloud by lobbying the federal government to let it plead guilty in the deferred prosecution agreement. But of course, the prosecutors have other ideas. They want to take this into court and try SNC-Lavalin on criminal charges for corruption and bribery in Libya. So here you have the company doing its best for its shareholders to try to get that business here in British Columbia by approaching the Minister of Transportation, and I found out about this not in the lobbyist registry, but by doing FOI requests, and that's a whole other problem there, that there seems to be not the level of transparency in the lobbying equation as the NDP had promised when they were running for office in 2017.
Bob, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you.
My guest has been award-winning investigative reporter Bob Mackin, the publisher of thebreaker.news. You're listening to the Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet, our YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. If you have any questions for Bob or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.